The day I proposed to Jessica was the happiest of my life since losing Mom to cancer. I thought I had found someone who understood my grief, who would help heal that wound. Her diamond ring cost 3 months of my salary, but her smile was worth every penny. I never imagined her family would turn that smile into a weapon against my mother's memory. I never thought the woman I loved would join them in the cruelest betrayal I could imagine. Before I continue this story, tell me where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever stood up for someone you love. I grew up in a small apartment on the south side of Boston. Dad walked out when I was 8, leaving Mom to raise me alone on a public school teacher's salary. She worked weekends at a local catering company to make ends meet, often coming home with tired eyes, but never without a smile. Our apartment might have been small, but it was immaculate and warm. Mom made sure of that. Despite working constantly, she never missed a parent-teacher conference or baseball game. She helped with homework every night, no matter how exhausted she was. When I got accepted to Boston University on partial scholarship, she cried with pride. I worked part-time through college to help with expenses, determined not to let her sacrifices go to waste. During my senior year, she started feeling tired all the time. The diagnosis came 3 months before graduation, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I moved back home immediately, taking my remaining classes online while caring for her. I graduated with my computer science degree, but instead of a celebration, we were scheduling her hospice care. She held on long enough to see me in my cap and gown, though she was too weak to attend the ceremony. Mom was extraordinary in the most ordinary ways. Every Sunday, regardless of how busy her week had been, we cooked together. She taught me family recipes passed down from her grandmother, insisting that a man who can cook will never go hungry and always have friends. Those Sundays in our tiny kitchen, music playing while chopping vegetables, were sacred. She kept a recipe book, leather-bound and worn at the edges, with handwritten notes in the margins. Add more garlic. Marshall loves this one. Perfect for cold days. When she passed, it became my most treasured possession, along with the vintage locket containing photos of her, my grandfather, and me as a baby. Judge people by how they treat others, not by what they own, she always said. During her 2-year battle with cancer, she never complained, facing each painful day with remarkable dignity. The nurses called her their sunshine patient, despite everything she endured. On her final night, she made me promise to find someone who values family as much as we did. Find a partner who sees your heart, Marshall, she whispered. Someone who understands that wealth has nothing to do with money. I held her hand until her last breath, promising I would. I met Jessica, 18 months after Mom passed, at a friend's birthday gathering. She was stunning, with intelligent eyes and an infectious laugh. When I mentioned losing my mother, her face softened with genuine empathy. That must have been incredibly difficult, she said, touching my arm gently. You must miss her terribly. That simple acknowledgement of my grief, when so many people awkwardly changed the subject, drew me to her immediately. We discovered shared interests in hiking, classic films, and terrible reality TV shows. She was ambitious but kind-hearted, driven but funny. As a marketing executive at a growing tech company, she understood my work as a software developer. Our early dates were effortless. We talked for hours, finishing each other's sentences and laughing at the same jokes. She loved hearing stories about Mom and encouraged me to keep her memory alive. When I cooked Mom's recipes, Jessica would sit at the counter asking questions about techniques and traditions. Your mother sounds amazing, she would say. I wish I could have met her. I thought Jessica's compassion was genuine. I believed she appreciated the values Mom had instilled in me. Looking back, I wonder if I was just desperate to fill the void Mom's passing left behind. After a year of dating, I proposed during a weekend trip to Cape Cod, where Mom and I used to vacation. Jessica cried happy tears, saying, "Yes, 1,000 times. Yes, I had saved for months for the diamond ring, wanting to give her something special, despite my modest income." That evening, as we celebrated with champagne, Jessica first mentioned her family's expectations for our wedding. "Daddy will want to host it at the country club," she said casually. "Mom has connections with all the best vendors in New England." I mentioned wanting to include some tributes to my mother in the ceremony, perhaps using her favorite flowers or playing her favorite song. Jessica smiled tightly but nodded. "We can discuss those details later." As we apartment hunted, Jessica frequently commented on how we would need to upgrade my furniture. "That couch was fine for a bachelor pad," she said, "but we need something more sophisticated now." My mother's handmade quilt, which I kept on my sofa, was relegated to storage. These should have been warning signs, but I was blinded by love and the promise of belonging to a family again. I ignored the subtle shift in Jessica's behavior, attributing it to wedding stress rather than deeper issues. My first dinner at Jessica's family home in Newton revealed much about her background. Their sprawling colonial house with manicured gardens spoke of generational wealth. Her father, Arthur, was a surgeon. Her mother, Diana, chaired several charity boards. Her two sisters had married equally successful men from good families. I brought an expensive bottle of wine and flowers for Diana. Both were acknowledged with polite but cool thanks. Throughout dinner, Arthur subtly interrogated me about my career trajectory and financial prospects. Diana evaluated my table manners and clothing with barely concealed judgment. "Software development is interesting," Arthur commented, "though I suppose these days anyone with a computer can call themselves a programmer." Jessica's sisters, Amanda and Lauren, exchanged glances when I mentioned growing up in South Boston. Their husbands, both investment bankers, dominated conversation with inside jokes about their exclusive golf club. Most disturbing was Jessica's transformation. My confident, warm girlfriend became deferential and quiet, laughing too loudly at her father's jokes and constantly seeking her mother's approval. She introduced me as a brilliant developer, but quickly changed subjects when I tried to speak about my work. I chalked it up to normal family dynamics, wanting desperately to believe these people would become my family too. The disrespect began subtly. During our third family dinner, Diana asked about my career goals with thinly veiled skepticism. "Surely you do not plan to remain a mere coder forever. Jessica tells us you are quite bright despite your background." Jessica's sisters regularly compared me to their husbands. Gregory just made partner, Amanda would say. "What is the promotion path in your company?" Family conversations routinely excluded me, revolving around their social circle, country club politics, and vacation homes I had never seen. When I did contribute, awkward silences often followed. Jessica began coaching me before family events. "Maybe do not mention your mother's catering job," she suggested once. "And that story about your apartment, growing up." Not really dinner conversation. Diana once examined my watch and remarked, "How quaint." My husband bought me this Cartier for our anniversary. When I wore a new suit to their Christmas party, Arthur commented, "At least he is trying to improve himself." I attempted to maintain my dignity while adapting to their world. I studied wine to contribute to their discussions and read about their interests to seem knowledgeable. But each time I gained ground, the goalpost moved. Most hurtful was Jessica's growing embarrassment when I mentioned Mom as though my grief were a social faux pas. Our first serious argument erupted after a particularly uncomfortable dinner with her parents. In the car ride home, I finally addressed their behavior. "Your mother practically called me a charity case," I said, "and your father keeps suggesting my career is somehow inferior." Jessica sighed dramatically. "You are being hypersensitive. Dad was actually complimenting you, saying you have potential. And Mom is just protective. Protective of what your family has made me feel unwelcome from day one." "That is ridiculous," Jessica snapped. "They are making an effort to include you despite our different backgrounds. Maybe if you tried harder to fit in." This pattern repeated after each family gathering. Jessica increasingly criticized habits her family found distasteful. My Boston accent that emerged when tired, my preference for beer over wine, even how I held my fork. "I am not asking you to change who you are," she would insist, "just to adapt to certain situations." When I expressed feeling like I was losing myself, she accused me of being dramatic. "This is about our future, Marshall. Do not you want us to succeed?" The woman who once loved my authenticity now seemed embarrassed by it. The growing disconnect created an invisible wall between us, one I was not sure how to break through. 6 months before our wedding, I brought my mother's vintage serving platter to Sunday dinner at Jessica's parents'. The blue and white ceramic dish hand, painted in Portugal, had been a wedding gift to my mother from her own mother. It meant everything to me. I proudly presented the homemade lasagna I had prepared, using Mom's recipes served on her platter. The moment I placed it on Diana's mahogany table, tension filled the room. "How interesting," Diana said, eyebrow raised. "I suppose every table needs a conversation piece." Arthur chuckled. "Looks like something from a yard sale." "Diana, do not. We have proper servingware for Jessica's wedding registry." Jessica stared at the platter as if I had placed a dead animal on the table. Throughout dinner, her family pointedly avoided serving themselves from that old dish. Later that night, Jessica exploded. "Why would you bring that thing?" It completely clashed with Mom's Wedgwood collection. "That thing was my mother's. It has sentimental value." "Well, sentiment does not match bone china," she retorted. "You embarrassed me." I went to bed that night wondering how the woman I loved could be so callous about something that mattered to me. For the first time, I seriously questioned our compatibility and whether our values aligned at all. Wedding planning became a battleground where I lost every skirmish. Jessica's parents insisted on hosting at their country club, with Diana taking control of every detail. The guest list swelled with their business associates and social connections, while my few friends were questioned and vetted. When I suggested including a candle-lighting ceremony for Mom, Diana dismissed it as morbid. My request to include Mom's favorite Beatles song during the reception was overruled because it was not sophisticated enough. "The wedding is about looking forward, not backward," Diana explained condescendingly while Jessica nodded. Arthur spoke openly about the cost, making it clear he was investing in our wedding. "For $50,000 per table, we expect perfection," he told vendors within my earshot. Jessica transformed into her mother's mini-me, obsessing over napkin folds and floral arrangements, while ignoring my increasing discomfort. When I expressed concern about the excessive spending, she accused me of not appreciating her parents' generosity. "This is how things are done in our circle," she explained as if I were a child. "When you marry me, this becomes your world too." I began to feel like an accessory to their spectacle rather than an equal partner in our union. My voice in our future was diminishing by the day. A month before the engagement party, Jessica delivered an ultimatum while we packed for our new condo, purchased largely with her parents' down payment. "We need to discuss your mother's things," she said cautiously, "particularly that old recipe book. It does not really fit our new home's aesthetic." I stared at her, stunned. "That book is not decor, Jessica. It is all I have left of her." "I understand that," she replied in a tone suggesting the opposite, "but we need to start fresh. Maybe you could store sentimental items at a storage unit." This was not a suggestion, but a demand. The recipe book, the platter, the quilt, the photos, even the locket, all deemed unsuitable for our fresh start. Despite my growing reservations, I agreed to attend the engagement party at her parents' estate. As a peace offering, and one last attempt to bridge our worlds, I decided to prepare Mom's signature dish, a Portuguese seafood stew she learned from her grandmother. I spent hours preparing it perfectly, chopping, sautéing, and simmering with care. Each ingredient represented a memory, a Sunday in our kitchen, her patient instructions. I hoped foolishly, perhaps, that sharing this piece of her might finally help them understand what she meant to me. Jessica's parents' estate was transformed for our engagement celebration. Crystal chandeliers hung from a massive white tent on their sprawling lawn. Champagne flowed from fountains, while a string quartet played. Professional photographers captured every moment for social media perfection. Nearly 200 guests attended, mostly Jessica's family connections. I recognized barely 10 faces among the crowd. My 5 invited friends looked as uncomfortable as I felt amid the excessive display of wealth. Jessica, stunning in a designer dress, initially greeted me with enthusiasm, but quickly abandoned me to circulate with her parents. I overheard snippets of conversations as I moved awkwardly through the crowd. Jessica certainly found a project, one of her mother's friends commented, not realizing I was within earshot. "Arthur says he has potential if properly guided," another responded. I retreated to the catering area where my seafood stew waited in Mom's serving dish. I had transported it carefully, nestled in towels to prevent damage. Looking at the rich tomato broth with fresh clams, white fish, and chorizo, I felt a moment of connection with Mom. The familiar aroma brought comfort amid my growing isolation. "You would have seen right through these people," I whispered to her memory. before gathering my courage to present the dish. Dinner was served buffet style, with stations featuring various gourmet options. With the catering manager's permission, I placed Mom's seafood stew alongside the other offerings, her blue platter standing out among the silver chafing dishes. Initially, guests approached with curiosity. Several took generous portions, commenting on the appetizing aroma. For a brief moment, I felt hopeful as I watched people enjoy something so meaningful to me. Arthur approached, plate in hand. Interesting addition to the menu. This was not on the catering list we approved. I made it myself, I explained proudly. It is a family recipe my mother taught me. Portuguese seafood stew passed down from her grandmother. His expression shifted instantly. You brought homemade food to a professionally catered event. Jessica appeared at his side, her expression darkening when she saw the dish. Diana joined them, lips pursed in disapproval. Marshall thought it appropriate to contribute his mother's recipe. Arthur announced loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. An uncomfortable silence fell over our corner of the tent. Several guests paused mid-bite, suddenly uncertain about what they were eating. How quaint, Diana said with a tight smile that never reached her eyes, though perhaps a bit inappropriate for the occasion. Arthur took a theatrical taste, his face contorting in exaggerated disgust. Well, I suppose when you grow up eating whatever you can afford standards, adjust accordingly. Diana laughed delicately. Darling, not everyone appreciates proper cuisine. Some people think Olive Garden is fine dining. Jessica's sister Amanda joined in. God, remember when he brought that tacky platter to Sunday dinner? Mom nearly had a stroke. Lauren, the other sister, added, the pattern is actually giving me a headache. Is that from a dollar store? Laughter spread through their immediate circle as more family members gathered. My chest tightened as I watched the mockery escalate, waiting for Jessica to defend me to stop this cruel cascade. Instead, she laughed, loudest of all. You should see his mother's recipe book. The pages are literally stuck together with food stains. I keep telling him we need to throw it out before we move. My eyes locked with Jessica's, silently pleading for her to stop, to remember all the times she had listened to me talk about Mom with supposed compassion. She met my gaze and doubled down. Finally upgrading from South Boston cuisine, she added with a smirk, clinking glasses with her mother as their shared laughter cut through me like glass. The floodgates opened as Jessica's extended family joined the mockery. Uncles, cousins, and family friends I had never met felt emboldened to participate in what had become a public humiliation. Did your mother actually think this was good? Jessica's uncle called out loudly, scraping his portion into a nearby trash can. Some people just do not know any better, her aunt replied. When you come from nothing, I suppose anything tastes gourmet. Arthur raised his glass. To improving the bloodline with some actual culture. No more discount recipes in this family's future. I found my voice, though it shook with emotion. My mother was an incredible woman who worked 2 jobs to raise me alone. She taught me values that clearly mean nothing in this family. Diana cut me off. Oh, please spare us the sob story about your sainted mother. We all have mothers, Marshall. The difference is we evolve beyond them. Jessica grabbed my arm painfully. Stop making everything about your mother, she hissed. She is gone, Marshall. Get over it already. Tears filled my eyes, not from sadness, but from pure rage and heartbreak. The woman I loved had just driven a stake through the most sacred part of my heart, and done so with a smile on her face. Jessica's face flushed with embarrassment at my visible emotion. Stop making a scene, she whispered harshly. These are important people. Arthur loudly commented, I do hope emotional stability is not hereditary. We cannot have our grandchildren bursting into tears over dinner. The gathered family stared coldly, some whispering behind manicured hands, others openly snickering. In that moment of complete vulnerability, something crystallized within me with perfect clarity. This treatment would never end. After marriage, it would only worsen. These people would continue to belittle my background, mock my mother's memory, and chip away at my identity, until nothing remained of the man my mother raised. Most devastatingly, Jessica was not my ally. She was their accomplice. The woman who had once held me while I cried about losing Mom now mocked that same grief for social approval. The person I had trusted with my heart had just revealed she found it worthy of ridicule. Every doubt, every uncomfortable moment, every compromise I had made suddenly aligned in my mind like pieces of a puzzle forming a picture I could no longer ignore. In their gleaming mockery, I found absolute clarity about what I needed to do, not just for my mother's memory, but for my own soul. I rose slowly from my seat, my movement drawing attention. The table gradually quieted as I stood tall shoulders back, channeling every ounce of dignity my mother had instilled in me. I have something to say to all of you. I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. My mother, Teresa Sullivan, was a public school teacher who shaped hundreds of young minds. She worked weekends catering events much like this one to ensure I never went without. She taught me that character matters more than money, that kindness is true sophistication, and that how you treat people reveals who you truly are. I looked directly at Arthur and Diana. By those standards, which are the only ones that matter to me, you are the poorest people I have ever met. Turning to Jessica's extended family, I continued. You mock a dish made from a recipe passed down through generations, shared with love and preserved through hardship. You laugh at heirlooms that represent family bonds you clearly do not understand. Your wealth has not bought you class, just the illusion of it. Finally, I faced Jessica, whose smug expression had transformed to shock. And you. You knew what my mother meant to me. You pretended to care. That makes your betrayal unforgivable. With deliberate calm, I removed the engagement ring from Jessica's rigid finger. I placed it beside my mother's serving dish, the diamond catching light, next to the worn blue ceramic, in perfect symbolic contrast. I promised my mother I would find someone who values family as she did, someone who sees wealth in relationships, not bank accounts. I almost broke that promise by nearly marrying into this toxic environment. That ends tonight. Jessica's mouth opened and closed wordlessly. Arthur stepped forward, face reddening. Now, see here, young man. No, you see, I interrupted. I deserve better than this, and my mother deserves to be remembered with respect, not mockery. I turned and walked steadily through the silent crowd, ignoring Jessica's sudden call of martial wait, and Diana's hissed, "You are making a terrible scene." Stepping out of the tent into the cool evening air felt like escaping. Prison. My chest expanded with each step toward freedom, grief, and profound relief battling within me. As I drove away from the estate, watching the glittering party lights fade in my rearview mirror, tears flowed freely down my face. But for the first time in months, they were not tears of confusion or compromise. They were tears of liberation. Jessica's calls and texts began before I reached my apartment. They ranged from furious, "How dare you humiliate me?" to pleading, "Baby, please." They did not mean it to manipulative. "My father is furious, your career could suffer." I blocked her number that night. The next morning, her sister Amanda reached out through mutual friends, explaining that I had misunderstood family teasing and should grow up. Jessica's father had apparently told colleagues at my company about my mental breakdown attempting to damage my professional reputation. My true friends rallied around me. My college roommate helped me move my belongings from the condo 3 days later. What I found confirmed my decision beyond any doubt. Mom's recipe book lay torn apart in the kitchen trash, pages ripped and scattered. Jessica had destroyed it after our argument, likely days before the party. I salvaged what pages I could, my hands shaking with grief and vindication. This desecration of my most treasured possession spoke volumes about the bullet I had dodged. With my friend's support, I found a small apartment across town and requested a transfer to my company's Seattle office. I needed distance from the wreckage and a fresh start somewhere Jessica's family could not reach me. The first weeks were brutal. I questioned everything about myself and my judgment. How had I been so blind? Why had I compromised so much? My therapist helped me understand the gradual nature of toxic relationships, how small compromises pave the way for larger ones until you barely recognize yourself. I created a memory box for Mom, placing the surviving recipe, pages, her locket, and photos inside. Each Sunday, I cooked one of her recipes, gradually re-establishing our tradition and reclaiming those memories from the taint of Jessica's betrayal. Seattle offered anonymity and natural beauty that soothed my spirit. I hiked the trails Mom would have loved taking photos to place in her memory box. I made new friends through work and a community cooking class, people who found my background interesting rather than shameful. Slowly, the fog of betrayal lifted. I realized my people-pleasing tendencies had roots in losing Mom and my desperate need to belong to a family again. I established stronger boundaries and learned to value my own company. 6 months after leaving Boston, I finished recreating Mom's recipe book from memory, adding my own notes in the margins. This act of reconstruction became symbolic of rebuilding my life on my own terms. A year after that fateful night, I barely recognized the man who almost married into that toxic family. I recently began dating again, taking things slowly with a kind-hearted teacher named Allison, who listens with genuine interest when I speak about Mom. When I showed Allison the recreated recipe book, she asked if we could cook something from it together. The simple gesture of respect brought tears to my eyes. "Your mom sounds like an amazing woman," she said. "I would have loved to meet her." I often think about what Mom would say about my journey. I believe she would be proud that I finally stood up for myself, that I refused to let anyone diminish her memory or the values she instilled in me. The greatest lesson I learned is that love without respect is not love at all. True love uplifts your whole self, including your past, your roots, and the people who shaped you. It does not demand you cut away parts of yourself to fit someone else's image. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same. Walking away from Jessica was excruciating, but staying would have meant betraying my mother's memory and losing myself completely. Some inheritances are not things but lessons. Mom left me the courage to know my worth. That is a legacy worth protecting. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who could not respect your values or your past? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for yourself and honoring your true worth. Remember that you deserve relationships that honor all parts of who you are. Thank you for listening, and until next time, treasure the people who truly see you.